Welcome to the EST Hangout.
This is the EST Hangout, and today's guests are...
A good Thursday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by Sentinel Storage, Canada's storage experts, live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. Thanks to everyone for tuning in live, whether they're watching on YouTube, listening to us on iHeart, TuneIn, EdmontonSportsTalk.com, or for all those listening to us on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Today, Matt Iwanyk, Tom Gazzola with you here, and one of my favorite guests. It is Steve Sandor back with us in the Hangout. Brendan, I'm going to need a favor. The camera was tilted.
So you broke the camera, didn't you?
I have Tommy's much lower than me. If you could just...
there is not a natural slope in this office?
Just go to the camera part of it. Yeah, and there you go. And I lift it up now.
Oh, yeah. Great radio.
Oh, no. Keep going. Yeah, it's awful. Great job. Yeah, terrible radio wording. And now
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. No.
Oh, we're saying
just keep working on that. Keep working on that and just lift it up and then turn it. Try to
hang on.
We should do Star Trek chairs. We should shake in our chairs like we've been hit by something.
Poor Stu Saraduke, who those of you who went to Nate. No, I'm still way lower. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care. Poor Stu Saraduke is probably... I doubt he's watching this because he's teaching the kids at Nate, the next generation of broadcasters. And he's going, you guys are breaking the gear which you put your blood, sweat, and tears into and invested your own capital into, and you're just breaking it. And you're not using it properly. And Matthew Iwanyk's going, no, just break it. Brendan, yeah, go ahead. It'll be fine. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been looking at that damn camera, Steve.
Yeah.
And it's been like this the whole time. And I was like, you know what? I'll let that be a Maddie problem.
No.
You have to play with the knot. You got to untwist it.
Wait, I don't know how it's been messed this way. How do we...
There's a level on that tripod.
Yeah, but it's not...
Use it. Oh, you know what he's doing instead, Steve? He's changing the leg height.
Compensating. Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
I bet that did.
What a great first 2 minutes of this show.
Yes, this is
Welcome to the Hangout. I'm Tom Gazzola, Steve Sandor.
Would you like to go try to fix it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Go, God, Mr. TV over here.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Hey, we started early today. The boys ended early on the morning show. They're supposed to go till 9 o'clock. They were done at 8:55. And we'll see Tommy fix this.
And so we're filling that time with.
You guys talk.
Technical.
Tommy's got this now.
As I said, we should just do Star Trek chairs. We should just every time that thing moves, we should act like we've been hit by something.
Dash with a great idea. Just put a coaster under that leg. That would have worked.
Yeah, this isn't a bar dash.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that could have worked really nice. You were like, we have a couple of these things, and we could have got it going.
Get the tennis balls on the tripod.
I still think actually, the camera does look a little straighter.
It is because it's level.
That's a good response. Well, this is the EST Hangout. So I said, presented by Sentinel Storage, Canada's storage experts. More than 2 decades helping Canadians through life transition. Right now, 75% off 12 weeks on 5x5 units. They are Canadian storage providers. So buy Canadian. Check them out, sentinel.ca. Thank you, Tommy.
You're welcome.
Fantastic work.
In case it was a little bit of pain for long-term gain.
It's
Funny
now
how
9:05. The Hangout's supposed to begin.
Yeah.
Now you could pretend that the show just started.
Yep.
The tools are made to be used properly. I can hear my dad's voice echoing in my head. A poor workman blames his tools.
Yeah, but we use the cheap tripod in this room. We have the better tripods in the other rooms.
But we have one really nice tripod that we leave in the
we have
extra
3
room.
extra of those.
Those are great.
They were all supposed to be used in the main studio because
Yes.
when we first envisioned EST, we were going to have 16 cameras. And we're going to be switching between them all.
Yes.
And then the computer crapped out on day 1 in the first hour. And we had to unplug everything. And we've never plugged them back in because...
That was a hard lesson.
Yeah, it didn't go well.
lesson.
So now those have been stored and we had this one in here. Actually, there's one behind Tiger.
Yes, there's a great tripod right there. This one's a piece of crap. It still works though, properly.
It did the job.
It does it, yes.
We figured it out.
Oh my goodness.
How many people does it take to fix a tripod? 3.
Yeah.
It would have been just one if Tommy went to it right away, but it was three because Brendan tried, I tried, and then Tommy tried.
Yeah, you're bending the plastic.
That's usually works for me.
You were that kid, weren't you? You probably bent all of Michael's toys.
Nah, the thing is, if this breaks, I get a new one.
We have a nice one right there.
Exactly. I'll make the switch then after.
I still think we need to like hang one of those like movable ones, either put it on the wall or hang it from the ceiling like our studio lights. And then that way you can like tuck it into the corner. I'm sure there's some kind of Amazon deal that's coming up at some point where we could find something like an extended arm. You know what I mean?
I do.
Steve, I'm sorry we're going to take you through the mud here.
You could give the intern like a handheld and make like every episode like an art film.
Oh, he does great back there. He's been excellent.
But I like that, like we actually give him a handheld and he's like zooming in on us.
Yeah, it's like reaction.
He's just walking around this room.
Are you just smiling politely or are you like actually like, no, I'll do it?
I'm all about it.
Oh, okay.
As you talk, he's like coming in on Tommy, then Steve, quick shot, like quick switch to him.
Like
and he walks back for the 4 shot.
It'll be like
full art.
This show brought to you by A24.
It's very real. In the moment.
I'm trying to see what I could find quickly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like an arm that like either extends from a stud in the wall.
Yeah, right now I'm seeing like desk ones, which we could.
The desk ones, yeah.
Yeah, that desk isn't designed for that.
No, that one's not. But there's options. I mean, those cameras, they're good. The technology with cameras now is amazing. Those ones, they're 1080 and they're very light. And I think the connecting plates and all that are very universal.
Oh, here's one that's for the wall. I don't know if that's kind of like what
exactly.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Because then, like, you know how we have to crawl all around that corner? For that one, you have it in place. You know how you set it up every morning. It takes 2 seconds, and then...
I would kick that tripod over every time I walk
Yeah,
out.
it's been kicked over.
I would kick it over.
It's been
every
kicked
time.
over, Steve.
You have no idea how clumsy I am.
We're all clumsy.
Oh, I think if we had a contest, I think I would win. Remember, I'm the person who dislocated a finger putting on a sock.
Excuse me?
I did. A couple years ago, I was putting on I was like, you know how you wedge your finger in there to get your socks down? And I felt it pop and I dislocated my finger. It was just like dangling.
Oh.
That's an impressive feat.
That is.
I will give you that.
But the thing is, when I went to the hand clinic in St. Albert to do
you
rehab,
pop it in yourself?
No, they had to splint it and everything. They were talking maybe had to get an opera, but it actually after like 2 months of splinting, it was okay. But I saw the hand specialist and he said, "Oh, like that doesn't even rate." Like I said, this must be like the goofiest injuries. Like you have to understand, I'm at the hand clinic. There's like stuff I see that you don't want to know, like people who try to stop the saw with their hand and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that works great.
Yeah, it's like
that works great. Oh,
whatever. That's yours. Just doesn't even register.
Have you ever seen the saw that's supposed to stop as soon as the finger touches it?
No, but that's amazing.
There is a technology. I don't know if I'd still ever test it with my finger.
I would not.
But I think it's called Saw Stop. And it's been around for over 10 years or whatever. And it's got a technology that it senses a finger. And as soon as it senses, the blade just shoots right down. And it's a lot to then replace the blade, I guess, or something because of the mechanisms. Like,
sure. But you still have your fingers.
But yeah, you might have a nick. And they've done it with like, I don't know if you could find the YouTube, like a video and download a YouTube video or something of it. Because they've done it with like hot dogs or something.
Wow. I know a guy that would still have 2.5 fingers if that was the technology he was using.
Yeah.
And my nono, classic Italian. He was a cabinet maker, carpenter, obviously. I guess I was like 2 or 3 years old and he was working in his garage. And he nicked a piece, Steve, of his pinky off on his table saw. And he comes running out of the garage. And he goes, "Son of a bitch." He couldn't say the whole bitch. He had an Italian accent. "Son of a bitch." And I guess I was just like playing in the backyard, and I just start crying because my grandpa's screaming, and my uncle like ran out of the house. My grandma was working at the garage. She's like, "What did you do, Bappy? What did you do?" He's like, "I did it, son of a bitch." And he had the piece, the tip hanging off, and he just ripped it and threw it into the garden. Oh! And my grandma's like, "Bappy, no, my radicchio!" And so my uncle like wrapped it up in a clean towel, took him to the Medi Center, and it was just the very tip. But he just took off like maybe a quarter of an inch. But he's like, I did it. This 65-year-old guy, son of a bick. And I guess I was just bawling my eyes out, and my grandma's screaming, and he rips the piece off, throws it into the guy. Beppy, no, my radicchio.
In grade 11, I cut myself on a bandsaw.
Oh, that stuff.
I nicked a tendon and
careful.
Nicked muscles and tendons, nerves and tendons or whatever.
Ooh.
I nicked them. I was good, but yeah, I got hit with that, and so I got a little scar on my left hand there. The saw stop wouldn't have helped me. I guess it would have helped on that one. I just don't know how the bandsaw would work if they ever created a bandsaw one.
This scar I have on my arm, not from a bandsaw. Okay, since we're talking about weird injuries.
Well, you started with your dislocated finger from putting on a sock.
This is in grade 3 when we used to play a game called Master Pain to see which of you could take the most pain.
Yep.
I am the reason that the Dufferin Peel Catholic School Board banned the rulers that have the metal edges.
Those are good
so
rulers.
What we used to do is rub it against the desk until it got white hot. And so a friend would hold it on your arm and you'd see how long you could take it. The pain of the searing hot ruler. And so my bet was that I could make it through the Hail Mary and Our Father with that on my arm.
Both.
Yeah. And after the prayers were done, my teacher screamed because she's like, what's that smell of burning?
Oh my God.
And there was just this gash on my arm and blood coming down, and she screamed and I got sent home. But I did not make a sound. I bared the pain of it for a good 4 minutes. And I actually was kind of proud of myself.
A good 4 minutes. Wow. Big Maple. A guy walked into a rural community hospital last year with his entire hand in a galvanized bucket full of ice. I couldn't do it. I respect the people that have to work with
this text.
All that, with the hand tools and all that stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah. Maddie doesn't use the level because he drinks Brew House.
What's that got to do with Brew House?
Everything.
Brew House is an amazing drink.
No, it is awful.
You ever drink Brew House?
Depression beer. Thank you, Steve.
Oh. Well, he just said no. He didn't say it's not a bad beer.
I don't drink a lot of beer anymore.
Okay,
I'm much more of a whiskey person. I
like a good whiskey.
I like a good whiskey too much of the time.
Hey, now.
I didn't use the level because the camera thing was messed up, and I don't know. Big Tom figured it out.
We got to figure it out. Big Dave, I think it's Dave from Nisku Glass, says, if you guys want to talk about gruesome cuts and injuries, bring me in for a hangout, and I'll tell you the things I've seen working in the glass industry. Oh,
yeah.
Glass. You get those fine shards. Ooh. Big Dave, yeah, I can only imagine. I'm getting squeamish as I get older.
I am too with certain things.
Yeah,
it's deep gashes and stuff.
My brother faints.
Does he?
Yeah. He can't see blood.
Oh, which brother?
Paulie.
Oh, really?
And I don't blame him. It's just a thing. It happens. He sees it and it's a thing. So, yeah, he sees blood and he faints. And I think my mom does too, if I recall correctly. So maybe it's in the family. I don't. I see an injury and I'm just like, ugh.
There was, I could watch horror movies. I could watch a lot of that stuff. But when I was going through my Saw marathon, or there was a movie with Blake Lively called Shallows, I think it was. It was a shark movie. It was actually one of the better shark movies you'll ever see to this day. It was really good. But it was when it's dealing with blood and a deep gash are the only moments where I would just sit there and be like, ooh. I can handle some other things, but it's when they get a really close up. I don't care if you chop a head off or something. It's whatever. It's when they get really close to a cut or something. Bothers me. You could pass on that. It's not working. Brendan was trying to get the Saw Stop video, but later, if you just YouTube the Saw Stop, it's a really cool little video that comes up there.
Quickly, two gruesome injury things. Craig McTavish one. 10, 15 years ago, Mac T, his hands were he's having issues with his fingers closing up. So they had to go in and cut down the palms and they fixed some stuff and his hands were okay. But he showed us the cuts and we're like, oh. And then Jerry Fleming, who coached Oklahoma City Barons and then the Bakersfield Condors, he had to get an elbow done and they took video of them working on the muscles and it was an open wound and he had video and he was showing us and he was supposed to they were moving his hand. You could see the muscles moving under the skin in the gash, and I almost puked.
All right.
Cool story, bro.
Big Uke saying Brew House is quote unquote amazing is a stretch, but it's not awful, which Ian Ferguson adds, it's a dandy beer. I say it's amazing in terms of, I know when I say Brew House is amazing, it's amazing for what it is. That's what terrible. It is. And which I'll always say, it's amazing. Like it is, I want a good, just easy drinking beer, couple that are cheap. Yeah, I want a Brew House. And it's amazing for what it is.
I wonder what's the age that you hit, because I used to think about that too. Like when I was younger, I was fine with it. Like it's good for what it is. Like that idea. And then I don't know what age I was where I'm like, no, I like the good stuff. I like the good stuff a lot.
Thank you, Steve.
And I don't necessarily just like good for what it is. I wonder what the age that you hit that is.
Well, it's not 34 for me because I am good with most bottles of reds. I like my reds. I am good with my standard beers, and I like any sorts of seltzer. I'm not really, there's only one seltzer brand I don't like.
Budweiser.
No, the Bud Light seltzer is amazing.
You like the Bud ones?
The Bud Light seltzer is amazing. I'm not a fan of the Coors Light seltzer.
Oh,
but I've heard there's a Coors Light seltzer like slushy version, which is amazing.
Really?
Yes, and I need to go find these ones. Liquor stores.
And it comes in a slushy?
No, it's just flavored like slushy.
Oh, slushy
and it's
flavor.
Supposed to be, have you had those ones?
Yeah, they're fantastic. They come in grape, orange, and cherry.
Oh, hot amazing. Summer day.
Amazing.
So, but I'm like, for my beers, I like, the one thing I do actually like about the 6 o'clock lager, I'm not a big beer guy. The 6 o'clock lager is the perfect taste of beer, what I'm looking for with beers.
It's good beer.
I want my Brew House. I'm good with a good just pill or a lager. I'm not into the other stuff as much. So for me, 34, that's not the age. I could go cheap.
But Steve's right. Like,
when did you hit it? When did you guys hit it?
I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to think when I started. Probably when you start getting to the area where you think to yourself, obviously money is part of it. Where it's like I make enough money to like not have to buy the
crappy beer.
Yeah, or the
and my brain doesn't work
or
that way.
the bourbon on the bottom shelf or the whiskey on the bottom shelf, right? In the plastic bottles. I don't need to touch that anymore.
I want to enjoy this beverage.
Yeah. I
enjoy a Brew House.
I got this Still Austin bourbon. It was so good. It was like it's like the Tears of Angels. And then it was like
angels and whiskey put in the same sentence.
And the other really great whiskey I had this year, I picked up in Montana from a Montana distillery called Devil's Brigade, and it was so good. And it was just fantastic. So shout out there. Now, if we're not buying American in a month, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like it's a hard one. I'll do the right thing.
Whiskeys?
Yeah.
But you said your bourbon, right?
There?
Yeah, bourbons are like,
There's a distillery near Camrose, I think it is.
Yeah, there's
Wildlife Distillery.
There's a couple of really great locals that I've had. But yeah, like I like the good stuff. I like to drink it. I don't like to put too much in my whiskey. Maybe an old fashioned. Other than that, it's great on its own.
Oh, when I'm drinking my whiskey or something, it's just a dash of water.
Yeah, that's
literally
good.
like a little press, just
especially
as quickly as possible.
If you're a nice Scotch, yeah, you want to do that.
That's it.
My dad, God bless him, likes Brew House for some reason. I think
good man, Reno.
He likes saving $2 on his case of beer, and I'm like Reno, you're retired. You worked hard for a long time. You're very comfortable. Enjoy. Treat your taste buds. You go, what? It's great beer. I'm like, no.
For some people, it's a wonderful beer. The difference is like, I'll treat myself. I'll go spend a. Or the other way is I could get more Brew House for the same price. So I can drink more.
Your Tylenol bill is going to go through the roof.
Yeah. Not with Brew House. I'm actually pretty good.
It's 2 of those and I have a headache.
Really?
Yeah.
Nah, I could drink a few Brew Houses. They're delicious. They're just clean. They're crisp. They go down nice.
You disgust me right now.
Thank you. Why don't I disgust you? Or why don't I disgust others?
Well, just right now. It's very minute when you do, and this is one of those times. It's Brew House.
Fergie's going to have, he says he's going to have one today for lunch. And maybe have one for Big Uke as well. So, good job, all you.
Okay, Fergie.
Okay.
I expect more from Fergie.
Oh, our camera's frozen.
Is it really?
Oh, see, you messed with the camera, and now it's frozen.
No, it's not. It was working just fine.
Yeah, but now you've messed with it.
How did I mess with it?
That's well, you played with it, and now we have no camera. The audio's coming through.
Yeah.
Oh, the light's not on. Okay, so here's
the light was on.
So, okay, I'm going to have to go help Brendan on this one.
You go help Brendan.
Good job, Tommy.
So, I fixed it.
So we've talked about gross injuries, gashes, whether or not Brew House is a good choice as a drink.
Yeah. What else, Steve?
How about that hockey?
What hockey game?
Was there a hockey game last night?
No, it was a great hockey game. It was highly entertaining. And by the way, I'm just going to give myself the old Barry Horowitz pat on the back because I predicted that game. I said 4-3 for Canada. I said that the Swedes are better than we expect them to be. And I said I expected that game to, like, if Sweden could harness and bend and not break, like harness the energy that Canada threw at it early on and bend and not break, then we were in for a tight game. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm just going to give myself the pat on the back. But it was highly entertaining. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's nice to see that these guys give 2 iotas about this tournament. I like that very much.
That to me was the biggest thing, right? It was the level of compete, because I had a cynical feeling toward this tournament. I mean, I still do.
Sure, me too.
Obviously the sort of in doing it in season like this, the sort of the manufactured feel of it. I guess all tournaments have that, but this one especially so. But
it'll always be manufactured at the start.
Yeah. But it was
they handled it well
hockey.
though.
It was good. I was surprised by the level. I mean, I'm still the great goal for me is not that Canada medals or anything, is that no one on the Oilers gets hurt. Like,
Well,
that is the number one priority.
Awful thing to say right now. I know that, so rip me all you want. For the Oilers, Shea Theodore getting hurt helps.
I thought that too last
Straight
night,
up.
actually.
That's although the flip side to that is Vegas now is LTIR.
Correct.
Which maybe
could be dangerous in another way.
If he's healthy enough to come back, they get an advantage in that way. But another way is you could look and be like the Oilers, hey, now knock that no one else gets hurt.
Find the stud.
And you don't want anyone to get hurt. But right off the bat, from an Oiler perspective, not bad. Not bad that of the player going down, it's Shea Theodore. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I just really careful not to wish injuries on anyone, because that comes back.
Yes,
that comes back to bite you. It's like, I don't want to be in that situation, but I still, wince. Matthias Ekholm, do not block shots. Like, it's like
perfect.
Do not do this. And I know it's terrible because it takes away from the quality of the hockey, but I was impressed so far that the level of compete was there. Because in the end, if you're charging fans the money to see these games and they're high, they want to see a level of compete. The level of compete was there. It was an entertaining hockey game. In the end, that's what matters. I don't think any of us see this as anything like a legitimate championship of anything, but at the same time, you want to see good hockey, and that's what it's about.
You know what? This is that back in the day, they got rid of it now, but they had that tournament, international cup during the summer in soccer for friendlies. That's almost like this is for the preseason tournament for the Olympics next year.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
This is the winner of the preseason. We've created a little tournament for these 4 nations to get ready for the 2026 Olympics. And the winner of this is the winner of that. You're the best team going into the Olympics.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how we'll look at this, is when we get to 26 and we start previewing how things are going to go with that Olympics. We'll sit there and go, well, Canada won the 4 nations. They probably are the favorite going into this because they beat the Americans and they beat Sweden and they beat Finland. That's probably what I think we'll take away as the big thing from the 4 nations.
How good is Matthias Ekholm, by the way? He was one of the standouts on that blue line, I thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was going to have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, for the Swedes, I still think in a lot of ways, even though he's here now in a hockey city, but I still think around the league, he's underrated for what he does. I don't think he gets into enough conversations when people talk about elite defensemen in the NHL. I still don't think he gets into conversations enough about what he does. I don't think anyone now looks back at that deal to bring in Ekholm and in any way as one of the best trades the Oilers have made in the last decade.
Easily.
It was one of the best moves they made. And the stability he's brought in, as well as sort of his hockey wisdom that he has. He has and I think you see it when you talk to him in the dressing room and such, just like he's got a wisdom about him, a quiet calm, and he's a real student of the game as well. And I think that is everything that shows with him.
Yesterday, speaking of that, Steve, I was wondering, as he was taking a puck behind the goal line and looking to headman it, I was like, I wonder if, say the Oilers continue to have success here with Ekholm as part of it, I wonder if he ends up in management at some point. Have you ever had that thought? Because that's
coaching or management.
Yeah, I thought about it. I'm like, I wonder if he would stay here too. And I feel like the answer right now would be yes, but it's obviously 5 years down the road or whatever. But I thought that to myself. I was like, this is a good hockey mind.
Yes.
On top of the fact that he's an elite defender. And I think now on this stage, it gives people more of an appreciation. If they're watching for that, I don't know. But I got more of an appreciation watching him and how he was utilized against Canada, how effective he was against Canada. I was like, geez, that guy, he is unbelievably good.
He did well against McDavid on that rush along the sideboards. McDavid still almost scored. He almost got it the wraparound.
Even with the stumble,
he was getting caught there a little bit, but McDavid ended up not scoring there. So got on Ekholm in that sense.
Brought back flashbacks to his Nashville years, right? And I mean, he joked about that when he came to Edmonton about like, oh, I don't have to actually do this anymore, play against those two. Because obviously, you know, with Nashville, that was like McDavid and Draisaitl's own personal playground.
12-course meal, yeah.
It was the Predators' personal hell, right? Like, they especially took that out in Nashville during those years. They still do, but like, you know, it's almost like, why Nashville? Why do you guys like really exceptionally love beating up on this team so much? And it was and I remember Ekholm talked about like, I don't have to do that anymore, face them. So I was wondering if you had flashbacks.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Here comes McDavid at me again. And this isn't a practice.
And he was looking good yesterday, McDavid. He was looking like that McDavid of like his highest, you know, in a sense. He was zooming around that ice and making magic happen. And then
that power play goal was just...
video game.
I said it over under. I thought I said it at like 25. Their first power play.
What did it take? 8?
It was 8. Yeah. It was just ridiculously quick. Like, and that was to me what I always wanted about Four Nations. I'm not big into this tournament. Like, I don't think it's the best thing ever. I understand why it's there. I understand why the NHL's doing it. This is the lead up to next year, but it's also the start to the World Cup, which they announced yesterday in 28.
We should talk about that too.
But it was one like I want to see that power play together. And that's why I'm not worried about Canada losing. The people who are talking about goaltending. Canada's going to score goals. They're going to find goals. You put those guys on the ice together. You know, go to the nuclear option late in the game. You need a goal, and those guys go on the ice. Like, look what they can go do together, and how brilliant they are together. And you put those great minds together on an ice, they're going to make magic happen. And we saw it yesterday, as you said, 8 seconds.
It was insane, and it was 56 seconds into the game, I believe, as well. Okay, here's a theme I saw on Twitter, X, whatever, that Reinhart and Marner were dragging McDavid down as his line mates. Do you guys buy that?
I think it's really hard to say one game in where these guys really haven't had time to like practice or such together. I think you expect to see you actually in a first game in a tournament like this, and I was surprised how little I saw of it. And so I think that's kind of micro criticism of that situation, because look how long it takes for line mates to gel regularly.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, this is no different than let's say, you know, other sports where national teams are put together and fans expect these guys who don't normally play together all of a sudden to play like they played together for a year or two, or no, it takes time to get to know, let's say, for Marner to understand what McDavid likes to do and Reinhart, because they're used to playing with their teammates and their line mates. And yeah, Alexander Barkov will tell you what Reinhart likes to do. It'll be like, yeah, sure. I know
he goes here sometimes. He likes to do this.
And it's just like, yeah. And it's just like you ask Zach Hyman or Leon Draisaitl what it's like to play with McDavid. They'll be like, yeah, well, you kind of know this and this and this. But those guys, it's really hard. That to me is a micro criticism.
Yeah.
You expect to see those rough edges, and it's going to take time. And I can't remember a hockey tournament where you put lines together like this of even top level superstars where it doesn't take a little bit of time.
Okay, Jeffy texts in regard to that, says they just have no chemistry, no one to get the puck off the boards. too short of a tourney to develop chemistry, so you may have to change it up. I completely disagree with that. We're talking about a 100-point guy in Mitch Marner, and we're talking about a guy that almost hit 60 goals last season in Sam Reinhart. I think next game, if that line's still together, they will find chemistry. That's how good and cerebral those three players are.
I'll just quickly, the Golden Knights just announced that Shea Theodore is expected to be out week to week due to an upper body injury he sustained at the Four Nations. So that's all they said. He's expected out week to week. So that'll end his Four Nations, obviously. Week to week, we'll see what that means leading into the deadline on March 7th for the Vegas Golden Knights. The question, this is one of the questions I had going into the Four Nations, is how's John Cooper going to treat this? Is he treating this specifically for winning Four Nations? Is he treating this as a full training camp for next year, or is he trying to mix the two together? Well, and I'm fascinated because if you're trying to mix the two, I think you're trying different lines almost each game, in a sense. Or if you're training camp for next year to see what there is, so that when you get to the Olympics next year, you've built chemistry. And you're finding where that chemistry works, and you know what works and what doesn't. So that's where I'll be fascinated to see what John Cooper does. Well,
let's look at the penalty kill. Who did he use the most? Cirelli and Hagel. And those are his penalty killers in Tampa. Did you see how quick those guys were on the rotations and how aggressive they were? It was like, okay, you two go play like you do when we're in game 42 of the season. And that's exactly what they did. I thought they were very effective. And then there was a shift late in the game where he threw point in with Hagel and Cirelli. I'm like, what the hell are they doing on the ice? And they were very effective because it was just like they picked up where they left off with Tampa. So I think he's planning for next year, utilizing certain elements that he already knows. Maybe he'll tweak on the fly, but I don't think it's a test. I think he's using what he already knows.
Because to me, I'd try McDavid with McKinnon or something for an entire game or something. And then I'd play with certain things to get ready for 26. So you're not playing in 26. Because they might, I think at the Olympics, there's not even an exhibition before the Olympics usually, is there?
No.
They go right into it.
No, and they'll because they have to try to create as small of a gap in the season as possible. I mean, I think we're already with Four Nations and such, like the amount of like 3 games and 4 nights that a lot of teams are playing is it's kind of crazy in January, February. So
Doughty 3 games and 4 nights.
Yeah.
With that game yesterday.
Yep. So I it's a balance of everything, and it's and it's not like the NHL will say, hey, we'll play a 74-game season on
just
an
for this
Olympic year. Yeah, like they're not going to do that. So you just got to accept that those breaks that you have, and you're right that you don't have a lot of time to find chemistry. And I don't care if it's 100-point players or people who are Hart Trophy candidates or past winners. It takes time to look how long it took for the Oilers to find the right players to play with McDavid. It took years.
They still rotate guys with him all the time.
There was a reason Kunitz went to the Olympics with Crosby back in 2014. Was that he had the chemistry with Sidney Crosby. That was the biggest thing of why he initially came, was that it's sometimes hard to find guys to play with Sidney Crosby. So let's bring one of his wingers with him who's having a great season with him so that he's got someone right there. And as the tournament progressed, Kunitz and then ended up getting dropped down. But that's what you do to try to rush that chemistry. The one thing for the World Cup, I never thought of it fully this way, but I know Pierre LeBrun yesterday said there's a lot of people, fans, media saying they hope the World Cup moves to September. Players are against that idea.
They want August?
No, they want mid-season because they want mid-season. They don't want their season to go longer. If you're doing a tournament in September, that means you're showing up in August for those camps, and now your season's just gone extended, or you've had a shorter off season. They want, as players, mid-season.
Okay, so Canada Cups and the World Cup used to be August, September. And I don't know if you read any of the books of the guys that have played in those old Canada Cups, they used to have like an extended training camp for Canada, and they just called it a huge grind. Like these guys now, they won't go for that. So that sounds about right.
That's what LeBron, I saw a post from him yesterday.
And remember back when they had Canada Cups, the NHL season ended in May. Right? Like it ended a month before it does now.
Correct.
Right? So for teams that go on runs to get to the Final Four, you're looking at guys who might not stop playing high-intensity hockey. To the end of June. And then all of a sudden you're back in August for a camp. You're looking at like a soccer player's level of time off, right? And like that is, and I'm not saying that's right what they do in soccer with the very small off season they have, but that you're looking at a very limited off season. And yeah, like that's big part and parcel of it. You can't compare it to back then because back then the playoffs ended in May. The first round of the playoffs was a best of 5, right? Like,
yeah.
And they played every night. Like do you remember, like, I think a lot of the listeners are old enough to remember when best of 7 series in the playoffs were back-to-back nights, one night off, back-to-back nights, night off game 5, night off game 6. They never had a 2-game break or a game break between 2 home games. Only if they had some kind of weird arena thing would they ever. And the best of 5 was 2, one night off, 2. They played 4 games in 5 nights back then, and so they could get through the playoffs quickly. It's not like now where you have off days and such while you're at home, like between games 1 and 2, and you have long breaks. And I remember too, it was always, if the game, one series went 7, it was like you had to be ready to play the next night because the second round was starting or the third round was starting. So the grind is different now, and there's very little holes left in the schedule because of it.
How about the league already announcing that the Stanley Cup final is going to have like the 2 days between games, just like it did last year? That's going to be the
Same
format.
schedule.
Yeah.
So it's a day off between games and then 2 days for travel.
Yeah, it was an
travel.
extent. Remember, like it was like almost like 14 or 15 days.
Because it was game 1 and then day off, game 2, day off,
2 days off,
game 3, day off, game 4, day off, 5, day off, 6, and day off, 7. I think
something
that's
like that. And they're following the same pattern. They're doing the exact same thing.
I don't mind it from taking away where it is in the calendar. I don't mind it with the travel. I don't mind that, like when you have Edmonton, Florida, I don't care that they have charters, that you're taking a full day and then they get a day in the city to get ready and then play a game. For the length of the season, though, I hate it.
But I think the NHL knows it's not just about the players and the charters. It's about, like, you need the media coverage. You need, like, the TV people. And it was a grind to get them. Like, because they're not chartering. And they're like, how the heck do I get from Miami to Edmonton back and forth? Like, and I mean, like, by the time we got to 5, 6, 7, you saw everyone in the press with eyes just rolling, like trying to figure out what flights, where they're connecting, where they're pulling an all-nighter, at what airport to try to get back and forth.
The refueling thing got me because I was like, we've done that flight.
Yeah, it's just
it's like a 5-hour flight. The Cup final last year started on June 8th and it ended on the 24th.
Yeah. And
the Oilers had 5 days between game 6 against Dallas and game 1 versus Florida. That's ridiculous.
It's to me, start the season sooner or something. Cut your preseason in half. And you're immediately now that you've got that ending on instead of June 24th, June 14th, right? Or June 17th.
And I think that's the question you ask. Like, okay, because Edmonton was there, right? And there was huge interest here. But let's say the Stanley Cup final this year is, I don't know, Florida and Vegas. Mm-hmm. How many of you are hanging in the 3rd week of June to watch that when it's beautiful out? It doesn't get dark till midnight. Your ability to go out and do things is like in Edmonton, we have such a short summer.
Well, in Canada,
you try to cram everything. Yeah, you try to cram. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, even sports teams, I know we talk about this in the CFL. Like, they're like, we don't like to play home games on long weekends. And you think, well, why? Because we lose crowds. Why? Because they're at the cottage, right? They're at the cabin. They're doing stuff.
It's background noise, right?
It's like my buddy's wedding is happening, right? Like it's all of those things happen on those long weekends, and you're struggling with it. And I remember FC Edmonton, this used to be a big struggle with them. And I mean, they had tons of attendance struggles, but they found their one sweet spot was Friday nights when they played, because that was a better night for people to get out than the Saturday, Sunday afternoons. Because in the summer, Saturday, Sunday afternoons, you start having that choice, even just between barbecue and beers in the backyard, or do I go out? Or could I just relax and have my buddies over and we'll have barbecues and brew house in the backyard?
Don't taint a delicious, succulent meat on the grill with a brew house.
In the summer, too, it just makes it even better.
Oh, treat yourself.
Yeah.
Nice, cool brew house at that
a
point.
Peroni or a Moretti. Product of Italy,
that's
not
for like
USA.
1 or 2.
No, you can
That's
crush
nice.
10.
I'm not crushing 10 of those.
You can.
That's just a waste of the quality beer. I'm not enjoying it by 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I think that
I'm
was
getting
the cheap man argument. Like,
I think it's
the
the
quality beer.
the cheap part of the cheap one too is that once I get laid deep into them, I don't care. I'm just drinking it. It tastes fine. It's gonna do the job. I'm sitting down for 1 or 2. That's where I'll go maybe for the Peroni or something like that. Yeah, but the thing with Edmonton and like Canadians is that we love hockey. And this isn't a shot at loving hockey. It's just that it is a short summer.
Yeah.
So the moment summer comes and your team's out, you go enjoy summer.
Yeah.
You did it. And that's why Rogers and Sportsnet want a Canadian team or 2 Canadian teams in the finals, because then it'll keep the interest. But if it's 2 American teams, there's just a lot of people that are just going to zone away. Not because they don't like hockey, not that they don't care about the Stanley Cup final. It's just, well, I get only so many days to go enjoy a nice weather. I'm going to go and enjoy it outside, or I'm going to go to a River Hawks game, or I'm going to go do something else just because I want golf. I just want to enjoy the sun.
It's no different in the United States, too. The American broadcasters will tell you when Boston goes out, the numbers. A lot of people think, it's the Rangers or the Blackhawks or maybe the Red Wings, whatever. Make no mistake, the most popular team in the United States are the Boston Bruins. And it's not close. They are the most followed team. You see it when Boston goes on the road in the States too. Like when, let's say, they play in Carolina or in Florida. It's no different than when Toronto or Edmonton goes down to like place in the Southwest where half the arena changes. And, they get the black and gold everywhere. And they know that in the States, that when Boston goes out, it's bad for business, right? They're like the Toronto of the States, right? And so they want them to go on long runs. And you can hear, like, when Florida knocked Boston a couple of years ago, and Boston had that Uber team that we all thought was going to walk to the Stanley Cup, and then they lost in the first round.
Yeah.
That sound you heard was the weeping of American broadcasters.
Where were we talking about it? Oh, it was on Her and Engage, I think, yesterday we were talking about it or something. And the idea of a Toronto, Edmonton Stanley Cup final. It's like in Canada, that'd be the greatest thing.
Yeah.
American broadcasters would be furious.
Now,
would be annoyed.
When the boys were talking about that yesterday, I wondered to myself, okay, all the viewers and that audience that you lose in the US, do you make up for by more people being engaged in and watching and listening in Canada? Because it is Toronto. And so ultimately you have the same rough amount of
But you've
audience.
already got Canadians, like, to a degree of following hockey. I don't know, like, that's a good point. But like, I guess the thing is, it's just the PR thing, a perception thing. You're in the States, all of a sudden your numbers are down 45%. Doesn't matter that you have 6 million people watching the Stanley Cup final in Canada. American, sponsors and stuff don't care. They care about the U.S. audience of that. And like, the numbers they would take a massive. It doesn't matter that McDavid's there and Draisaitl's there. It doesn't matter that the Leafs are there. It's 2 Canadian teams, and America would be like, we're good.
You know what? I quite frankly don't care. Like, if the NHL would be hurt by a 2 Canadian team final, I quite frankly say, screw you. They've had an American team or American teams in the final. Basically, when was the last Canadian final? 89, right? Calgary and Montreal. That was the last all-Canadian final.
Probably.
Yeah.
So who cares? Screw you. You didn't get an American team in there this year. La di frickin' da.
Well,
eat it.
That's fair, but the NHL offices would be like, this isn't good for us.
I don't give two you-know-whats.
And the business, if you want the NHL to flourish more.
It's already having records. Last year was a record year. This year's already beating that year. And they're pumping up. They're doing just fine.
They're doing great in revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, the total viewership numbers still struggle.
They've dropped this year.
Yeah, they dropped. They've been dropping steadily. And I mean, I've been going through this because a lot of book research went into this about that curve of like how it's been dropping steadily. But the revenue comes up. It's no different than baseball. Baseball's numbers have been dropping steadily. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, the fans that they have are willing to spend more on the sport. So there's this weird balance of the numbers dropping in terms of total numbers, but the people who are engaged are spending more, and advertisers are willing to spend more to get to these people. So it's this weird curve of the amount that you're hanging in. You're still a fan of the game, but generally you're spending a lot more to be a fan of that game than you did, let's say, 20 years ago. Teams aren't, and that's, into the everything that's gone with it, the streaming packages, the merch. Like, I mean, how much is to buy a replica jersey now?
It's like $400.
Like
they were like $500. Isn't it like $500
if you want like a game worn? Yeah.
Or for like these for jerseys for these 4 nations.
It's 500.
I thought I saw like $4.99.
Oh my goodness!
Just like okay, like a new era cap is like $50.
Yes,
like $50-$55 now.
I feel like that's cheap still even.
Yeah, and
personally, like I thought it was like closer to 70.
It all depends, right? And the numbers are going down, but the revenue's going up, and you just wonder at some point, because the NHL, trust me, and I know this by talking to their execs, is okay to plug the book now for my new book.
Yeah.
On leveling the ice out in September, Beacon Penguin Random House. The thing that the NHL's talked about is how concerned they are about their numbers, and that they do see that there has to be an uptick. They are like all sports. They're like, we have to make some business decisions that are going to make this game more broadly appealing. And the things that the NHL talks about, the teams themselves push against, which is to make the players more accessible, make them more personable, make the dressing rooms more open for the media, have the players not be those guys that say, well, great game tonight. I saw the puck all night, and yeah, it was great. All credit to my teammates. They make me look good out there. That, let's face it, like in the NHL, and now I'm on a tangent, most of us don't need to be there. Like the dressing room stuff is so the same every night. It's not like going to other teams, other sports, where players will actually kind of maybe pull a little bit. And I'm just saying, because it's hockey's culture, and it's ingrained when they're starting junior, that the dressing rooms are very tight, they're very closed. And because of that, it's very hard for the fans to sort of really get a sense of the personality. And I think that's why Connor McDavid is not a household name in the United States. I mean, he didn't make the list of the 100 most recognized athletes in North America, right? And he's not on it.
And I'm sure he personally is probably happy about that, but for the game in the NHL, that's a concern.
It's a concern. It's
$510, by the way. On Fanatics for an authentic jersey. If you want an authentic pro jersey, it's $510. There is an applied code here for a coupon. Free shipping apply.
Sick.
Well, you better get free shipping for $510.
It does say it ships free anyways, so this code doesn't really apply. But you get free shipping.
What about do they have a replica option? Because I know Fanatics had replica options that was a little bit cheaper, but $500, Steve. Like, and I know
when you think about it now, like if I would have told myself like 30 years ago that it would cost more to buy a hockey jersey and a pair of sneakers than like a pair of Oxfords and a suit.
Yeah.
It's like you would be like, well, no, the most expensive thing a guy's going to buy is a really nice suit.
Yeah.
And like a pair of really nice shoes, like a pair of Oxfords to wear. And you're like, no, your sneakers are going to cost more. And you're getting that jersey you wear is
$500.
If you don't want a name on it, it's $210. If you want a name on it, like an Austin Matthews US jersey, I'm looking at is $260.
This is the replica version.
They call this the premium player jersey.
Yeah, that's the replica.
So that's much
more
better.
Reasonable. Yeah, that's in line with what Adidas was doing.
Jay Millen texts me saying, think of how difficult it would be for TNT to sell ad space for an all-Canadian Stanley Cup final. Follow the money.
Screw them, I say, for one season.
Take and that's where the NHL could get away with it for one season. The issue is like as long as it's not when they're negotiating a TV broadcast rights deal.
I think with TNT and with ESPN last year, they did have the benefit that the Oilers had name recognition, superstar recognition. Yep. And I think they all did a really good job of playing up Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And I think that worked for the league. I think I would be more worried about it. And I hate to say this, but I think it would be harder for TNT to play a team like Winnipeg up. Because it'd be like, well, the goalie's really good. And he's American, and the goalie is a superstar.
You have the two best players, or two of the best players in hockey with Edmonton that you get to.
Yeah.
But we're talking recognition.
And then the Oilers have the recognition because of the Gretzky, and they are known down south. Like,
correct.
That's how Edmonton is, I think, largely going to be known from Americans.
Yes.
Toronto's Toronto.
Right.
I think you could get away with the Habs.
Oh, yeah.
I think I don't think
Vancouver has a sexiness to it.
Do you think in the States that I was about to say, I think Vancouver would be a little bit of a tougher
People
sell
know
for TNT
Vancouver.
still.
They know Vancouver.
But would they care enough?
No, but they know it.
Okay, yeah.
There are a few teams, to Steve's point, in the NHL that generally are uninteresting to most people. Carolina's one of them.
Columbus
is one of them. Winnipeg's one of them. Ottawa's one of them. Anaheim's one of them.
Yeah, that one, like, just because it's the LA market.
San Jose.
But it's
San Jose's in there. They're teams that people are like, oh, all right.
And that's in all, like, across. Like, in the NFL, the Jags are one of those teams, I would say.
Absolutely.
The NFL, I don't think ever wants the Jags necessarily to be in a Super Bowl game.
Yeah.
Titans, I think,
Panthers, do they really care
Panthers
about?
are in there a little bit. Like, there's a couple of NBA. I all due respect, the Memphis.
Yeah.
Like, they're a great team, John Moran, all that, but it's
like,
do you really? The
Let's
NBA,
get Sacramento in there. Soy Damon Bunting.
Oh, the Timberwolves.
They're probably sitting there like, we're good without you guys.
Yeah, it's like if we were playing Sporacle and you had to name all the NBA teams, what are like the 4 or 5 last ones you remember, right? And it's like,
we just listed them off.
You're the one. We're Utah. Like, we're good.
Yeah,
we're fine.
All teams in
just
Utah.
thanks for
All
showing up
teams.
during the regular season and maybe a round or two in the playoffs. But you can go away now.
we let the big boys go to
I'm
the
still
final.
cheering for Hockey Club being the name.
Thank you.
my
So
goodness.
hard.
Thank
so
you.
bad.
I'm so hard on
Awful.
that.
I'm so glad it's
Utah
still a
HC.
finalist. Like, the
HC.
longer it goes, the closer it is.
I think though you could switch it up to be HC Utah, and then I'm like, oh, I could like that even better. But
you
yeah,
footy
you don't
guys.
Need a name. I don't need a name. It's so great.
It's awful.
Okay, why do you like that name?
Because the names that teams come up with now are so manufactured and created by marketing departments. One is worse than the other, right? Like all the other names are like whatever, right? It used to be like when you go to the history of team names, like the names that existed, there was a reason for them. There was a reason that a certain team was called that, right? And it's not like Dodgers is a name that came out of nowhere, right? It was a nickname. It was a terrible nickname, and it's one that has a loaded history about people who jumped on Brooklyn streetcars because they had no money. It was like the Dodgers. That's why they were called Dem Bums for years in Brooklyn, because they were named for something that, sadly, homeless people were known to do. And it was a thing that they took on. If you didn't know the history of the name, there's the history of the name. And I'm not saying that's a wonderful way to base a name, but the teams had a history, and there was a reason they had those names. It was something that reflected something about their community. Now they're designed by marketing departments who they go, oh, this will be cool because the hottest thing with kids right now are dinosaurs. So let's name it after this. Or the hottest kid thinks this is the hot color right now in decor. So let's go with teal and like electric purple. And it's like, what are you doing? There's a reason that names should be organic. And like the great thing with FC Edmonton, right? I'm gonna go, and while they're gone and long gone, was the rabbit thing, right? And then the rabbit eventually got sewn onto the back of the jersey, and it was because the rabbits was considered good luck when they ran on the field, and they had a comeback win because after the rabbit, and they had to stop in the game, they came back and won, and the fans started embracing the whole weird rabbit thing. Right. And then the rabbit got into the team logo.
And
the
it was on
rabbit
the back of
got
the
into
jersey
everything.
and stuff.
It's like, and it was like, because it was natural, it was organic, it was part of the team's history that got slid in.
I like that.
I don't care about Yetis or mammoths or all of that stuff. It's not reflective. This team in Utah has had 1 year. They don't have a history yet.
But they do have an all-decade team from NHL.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous because they are considered an expansion team. And Arizona, the Coyotes are a team in stasis.
And they had their own all-decade team.
Which
the
is
Utah
ridiculous.
all-decade team was literally just the team that played from October through to December.
That is ridiculous.
It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. Both goalies made the team. It was the first and second lines, and I'm just like, yes, this is the greatest list ever.
The guy gets called up from the minors on December 10th. Hey, welcome to the all-decade team.
You did it.
I mean, it was just the best.
You did it, Josh Doan.
They didn't just maybe go with you want to know something, we're going to do Arizona, but we're going to leave Utah to this because they've only played for 3 months. They went in on it. They did it. Thank you, NHL, for that one.
I am all for Utah HC. Let the team develop its history. We'll see what that will be.
I also think it suits the city. I said,
well, it's very bland there.
Well, but Real Salt Lake is like it's not real Salt Lake. It's Real Salt Lake. They've stolen from Europe like a lot of MLS teams do. It's the Utah Jazz. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
It comes from New Orleans. Like a Utah Hockey Club would be different for hockey.
That's like the Lakers.
Absolutely.
I think the greatest thing was that they didn't change their name, right? Like,
but they're being
the Lakers
different.
and Jazz didn't change their names.
So don't have a name.
Have a
be
reference
different
to
in the
something
National Hockey League. Be that weird team and do it that way. I think it fits their city as well with their other sports teams.
This one comes in from Raider Jesse, who throws in a counterpoint. It says Raptors now have an awesome name because they have existed now for a while, and it doesn't matter why or how they got named. That's like one of the Raider Jesse's right, but like that's one of the rare occurrences where it's kind of like formulated, germinated over time, and now it's like, oh, they have Jurassic Park in downtown Toronto.
But they also had to get rid of the Raptor logo. I feel like for them to get cool. Like when they got, and I love the
and
Raptor
the purple
logo
and
stuff,
black jerseys, all that had to go.
Once they went to red, white, and black, and they kind of, if you want to look at it, they went more, we're Canada's team. They went, we'll go with those colors, and we'll make it just, it's the scratch on the basketball type thing. And they went away from that.
Yeah.
Then it became, I think, more cool and more popular. And now they could go retro and bring back that old Raptor every so often. It's cool. It's nostalgic and stuff like that. But I don't think it would have looked as cool if they were still that team. I think the image change helped them significantly.
Yeah. I think you were talking about Real Salt Lake, but the best MLS, I've always thought the best MLS copying a European name was Houston Dynamo because they stole a Russian name, right? It's like, who does that? Like, who goes Dynamo, right? Like that is so Russian. I'm like, so is their rival going to be Locomotive Colorado? Like Tractor San Jose? I used to actually joke because of Toronto at one point when Preki was coaching, and everyone knew in the press box, and it got into some of my columns that I used to write about Toronto FC when I was back at Sun Media. I'd refer to them as Red Star Toronto, and it became this nickname that started heading out in because of just the way that they played and the way that Preki coached. And I was like, yeah, this is Red Star Toronto, like glorious Red Star Toronto, and it was like the little nickname that we gave them, and it was good.
Jeez.
Go ahead. Actually, before you do, portions of this are
ahead.
brought to you by the High Product Marketing, official merch partner of EST. Promotional products that bring the buzz. Check them out, thehighproductmarketing.com.
This text comes in from Lebanon Don, who likes to sometimes go by Big Man, and today has chosen the name Pizza Boy. But Lebanon Don, all your texts are in here. And Lebanon Don says, guys, last night the first hockey article on ESPN.com was the 31 headlines from the top, and it was previewing the U.S. team at Four Nations. No mention of the Canada-Sweden game. If the network that has NHL rights doesn't care about growing the game, then to hell with them.
Well, but the top hockey headline, like, is that on ESPN.com or is that in the NHL version of this? But America is one thing. They are very patriotic. They don't give a damn about any other country.
Correct.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Well,
that's not something I'm going to knock ESPN for. That's knowing their market.
How they do it.
If they want people to get interested, ESPN cares about Americans watching America versus Finland tonight or America versus.
Yeah. Have any of you watched Olympic coverage on the United States?
Thank you.
If
the Americans are not good in a sport, that sport does not exist at the Olympics.
Where CBC gets credited because it's one of the best coverages around the world because they go all over the place,
and then
whether
you can
it's
go
Canadian
into
or
different
not.
CBCs and then say, oh, maybe I do want to watch handball. And you're like, oh, but it's on CBC Gem or CBC2. I can find it. I can find a feed of it, right? Whereas the Americans, it is like, if
it's America
they're not
only.
good in it, that don't exist. It really doesn't exist.
I watched... I was in Phoenix for the Olympics and Coeur d'Alene for the entirety of the Paris Games. All I got was NBC. And then when I would go onto YouTube to find CBC clips, geolocking happened. And I remember I was trying to watch, what's our girl in the pool? Not Penny Alexiak, but
Summer McIntosh.
Summer McIntosh. They had a race and I was trying to see how she was doing, and I'm watching it. And as soon as the two Americans finished, I think it was like a 1-2 finish, they just ended the video. I couldn't find out who finished third. They just ended it. They didn't show the results.
There's a great race where she won it, but like the Americans were like thinking the American was going to win this whole time, and then it's like, and then they like Penny or Summer passed her or something, and then Summer won, but they acted like winning silver was the goal for the American.
Yeah, I'm like, this is terrible. I have no idea what happened.
That's what they do down there. So when it's an international event, the fact that they have, like, that's where I'm intrigued. If it's on ESPN.com, that makes sense to me because, like, they're not going to, and this also wasn't their broadcast, Canada, Sweden. It was a TNT broadcast. They're not going to push it. I don't know if TNT has this entire tournament or if it's a mix between the two.
I'm assuming TNT has it because...
And then if that's the case, ESPN's not there to do the job of TNT.
Not their product,
they didn't pay the money for this. They're not getting the right... It's not their job to promote this then for the NHL, but they are going to promote America ahead of anything else in all sports.
Yeah, and that's no different than, let's say, in the summer. In the summer, you'll watch Sportsnet, Sportscast. It's Blue Jays, Blue Jays, Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
TSN will be heavy on CFL.
Yes.
Where Sportsnet,
not enough sometimes.
CFL is a footnote near the end of the broadcast. Correct. Right? Whereas TSN's Blue Jays coverage definitely not as heavy as, they'll lead with the CFL news because it's their own properties they're pushing, right? So obviously Rogers in the summer, the Blue Jays are 3/4 of their sportscast. Of course it is. They own the team. And CFL and TSN have a heavily invested partnership. So there you go. You got to understand, guys, sports so-called news broadcasts are not news. They're promotional vehicles. They stopped being news 30 years ago.
We had
they are promotional vehicles for these networks to push the games that they broadcast. They tend to skew toward what they have the rights to. Just watch how hockey coverage dropped off ESPN when the NHL walked away from ESPN, right? And hockey coverage dropped. And then it picked up again when ESPN had the deal. Mm-hmm. If you are expecting balanced journalism from a sports broadcast, I hate to say this, you're kind of dumb because it hasn't been like that for 20 years.
We had Vic Rauter on Dave Jameson's show back at 1260. And I remember
Fair point.
He ranted on this. And he was still working, he still works for TSN. He's like, I hate when I throw on a Sportsnet broadcast, there's no CFL talk, and then I throw on the TSN broadcast, and they don't even mention the Toronto Blue Jays. It's the worst. He just went after sports media, and he was working for one of the companies. This is great, but you're not wrong. It's Vic, and you're not wrong, Steve. We're not at a point now where it's personal interest. Now, as for Four Nations, TNT has 2 broadcasts. They're broadcasting whatever's on February 12th and 17th. So Canada yesterday, and I don't know what's on the 17th. ESPN's got the 13th and the 20th, and the 15th on ABC.
I just know Jackie's there.
Yeah,
all week, and she's not doing WWE.
ESPN has American, they have the American game tonight. So naturally, even on that sense, even if it was kind of all level of, they're going to promote the broadcast they have tonight as opposed to one on a competing network yesterday. That's the American one, so America's up there. I won't rep ESPN for anything right now when it comes to growing this game by having the U.S. over this game. Right. Americans just don't care about Canada, Sweden too over their country.
They really don't.
And if you go to Sportsnet or TSN, there's a good chance tonight you're going to see something more America ahead of the Canada, Sweden from yesterday, or Canada upcoming tomorrow, whenever. Well, I guess it's Saturday's the next game.
We are an afterthought to Americans. Yeah. In general.
The world is an afterthought to America.
Yeah. Very fair.
That's just, it's always going to be America, America, America. That is the big thing. So if there's a way, if it's an international thing, they're always going to, World Cup next year, America's going to dominate the headlines on ESPN.com. What is the American men's national team doing? It's not what Brazil's doing necessarily. Maybe there'll be a little Mexico in there.
Right.
Because of the Latin community and the Mexican community down south. There's a lot there. Maybe the Mexican, we'll see a little more Mexican articles too. But America's going to dominate those headlines down there because it's an international tournament. America's in it. It's going to be America, America, America.
The drone gate at the Olympics with our women's side on the football and footy. Not a single mention. I had no idea until people were texting me about it. They're like, "Did you hear about our ladies coaches?"
Because it also wasn't a big deal.
I know, and I was like, "No, why? I haven't seen anything on it." They're like, "This is huge news," and I went on ESPN. Nothing. I was like, I don't know. Why is this a big deal?
I've said it before. I've said it again. In soccer, if you ain't spying, you ain't trying.
Oh, my favorite was, I think it was Drogba was interviewed by Ariel Helwani, who's doing stuff for CBC. And Drogba laughed it off. He's like, everyone does this.
Yeah.
And yet Canada was all upset. We're upset at our own team. I think New Zealand was upset, and that was it. The world didn't care.
Yeah, it's whatever. Yeah. It's done so often. That's done so often in soccer.
Why do it at the Olympics?
Well, it's
why do it with the drone at the Olympics in one of the most secure locations in the world? Of course, you're going to get caught.
It's also Yeah, like do the thing where you have someone hiding behind the tree in a disguise and whatever.
It's their fault.
Yeah, and it's not like soccer's the only sport this happens, right? Like New England Patriots. This is it's kind of the way. I mean, I kind of am amazed sometimes in North America the kind of access we have to practices. Like, and much as I just said, the NHL needs to be more open. I'm waiting for the day when their coaches or NBA coaches say, hey, you can't be in a practice. You're not going to post our lines. Like, I don't want you posting our lines.
Jay Woodcroft hated lines being posted. Didn't like footage of like power play stuff. And I remember that.
Then do what they do. They do what they do in soccer and they do what they do in Europe. Close practice and say you can only shoot the first 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes, and then you go into the interview room because you're not allowed in the dressing room. Right?
That's what they do.
That's what they do. Like you wouldn't see the inside of the dressing room as a media person. But it's different. But it feels like that now here, like with the dressing rooms, because how kind of very, choreographed everything is nowadays, as opposed to like years ago.
This is the EST Hangout live here in Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports, presented by Sentinel Storage, Canada's storage experts, more than 2 decades helping Canadians through life transitions. They are a Canadian storage provider by Canadian. Shop Canadian, sentinel.ca for more information on Sentinel and to find a location nearest you. Tom Gazzola, Steve Sandor, Matt Iwanyk with you here. Steve from Edify Magazine on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, tune in iHeartRadio, YouTube, or thanks to everyone listening to us on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Sean Bell wanted me to start throwing those as like David Letterman. That's why.
It's kind of fun.
I've gotten really good at it.
Yeah.
I've gotten really good at it. So,
Dr. John with a good text, by the way. Dr. John via the inbox says, the world not caring about drone hate is not entirely true. It was a bigger deal at the Olympics. I was there, and when people saw me in Canada gear, that's the first thing that they mentioned. That makes it, but you're there.
Yeah.
But you're at the event.
Yeah.
But the soccer world didn't care.
The soccer world. Okay, so we're delineating. And then the Americans didn't care because I didn't see anything when I was down there.
Canada,
I'm like, what happened?
We cared. New Zealand cared because it impacted the two.
Right.
Maybe the Olympic Village cared and everything in the Olympic Circle cared, but like no one was caring anywhere else. No one. It wasn't a story for English people talking about soccer. It wasn't like breaking news: Canada's cheating at the Olympics in soccer. Oh my God, what a disgrace they are!
Got it.
Kick them out of the Commonwealth. That type of stuff. They didn't care. That's just what it kind of came down to.
We cared a lot. We cared.
Yeah.
Because we don't understand. Like most Canadians aren't plugged into that soccer world, right? So they're like, "Oh,
how dare that's not the Canadian way of doing things." And then when you go to the history
of this being done and teams doing this to each other, and you're like, "Oh wow, they've been doing this for decades, all through every level of soccer." But it's like, "Oh, we got caught, so let's fall on the sword. Let's all jump on the sword collectively." Like I said, it was more about I can't believe you were dumb enough to get caught, just like you said, like being at the Olympics in a secure area.
The audacity of doing what you did there.
Or doing it in such a way that you're being on. And then people are going to say, oh, Steve, you're condoning cheating. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Cheating has been around for as long as sports exists. And a lot of times it's condoned and accepted. And we get really hypocritical about it after the fact. And it really bothers me. In a lot of cases, when we get all pearl clutchy about it after the fact, as if we didn't know it was happening at the time. And then we kind of just say, oh, well, now we're going to go back and revisionist history this and talk about what a disgrace it is and not have Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame because...
I had a feeling you were talking about steroids.
Yeah.
I had a feeling you were talking about... As you're talking about that, I'm going, it was like, this sounds like this is the steroid era we're going off on, aren't we?
You know this is a bugaboo for me, and you know that every now and then I'm going to bring it up. I think it's some of the worst hypocrisy that we have is the pearl clutching around Mark McGuire and Barry Bonds especially.
Baseball writers are the worst.
They are.
They are so...
You knew it was happening.
They're the ones, they are so high and mighty about themselves and being the gatekeepers of the Hall of Fame.
They were encouraged by their team medics. They were encouraged by the team doctors. Baseball knew that they were creating a renaissance of viewership in the game, and they were being encouraged. And then after they get caught, and I put that, then all of a sudden we clutch our pearls and say, oh, that was wrong what they all did, even though so many players were doing it. And that Barry Bonds was hitting those jacked home runs off of jacked pitchers against a bunch of other teams that had jacked players on them. And that we just kind of just dissuade that his numbers were so historically gaudy in something that is maybe the most difficult thing in sport to do, which is to hit a baseball coming at you at 98 miles an hour, that he was so historically gaudy. When you look at his greatest years, where he had more walks than some guys had hits, like the next top guy had hits, because people were so terrified of him when his on-base percentage was through the roof. And we just absolutely say, oh, well, it was all steroids. Even though even before the steroids, he threw up Hall of Fame numbers. He was throwing up Hall of Fame numbers to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And people forget, how many Gold Gloves did he win? And it was like, that's not about steroids, right? Sorry, Gold Gloves aren't about that.
The other thing with the media, too, is there's that AP reporter in St. Louis who identified something in Mark McGuire's locker and wrote about it.
Yes,
he saw and he got ostracized by the media. The media's like, how dare you write about that? How dare you talk about that? And then later you're going to be like, oh, steroid error, Pat, how dare players do this? Well, you literally did help cover this up.
You gave free passes to it.
You gave free passes. You saw it happening and you gave a free pass. And now you sit there and be like, I'm not voting for you because you tainted this sacred game and I get a vote. Piss off, baseball.
Baseball is not a sacred sport.
No.
It is not.
Cheating has existed in baseball forever.
Yes.
Right? And I mean, it doesn't matter if you're doctoring baseballs, corking bats. And again, like if you ever have a chance, anyone who's listening, to see the Doc Ellis biography, it's a great film made about him, all-star pitcher in the 70s, really outspoken. And he talked about all the cheating he did, from the putting the jerry curls in his hair so he could get the grease on the baseball, to like taking stimulants before the game to calm him down. He said all pitchers did it. We took greenies. He said to keep our ice water in our veins as we pitched so we wouldn't get excited. Is that cheating? Absolutely. They were doing hardcore like drugs. They were taking stimulants before games. Why? So they could stay on an even keel. Like, so that when they're pitching and let's say there's two men on and they're at a full count, they can just kind of go, okay, not get too excited. And yet all of a sudden we get to this point. I'm not saying any of this is right. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is when it becomes so culturally accepted and then we pick our spots to all of a sudden be outraged. Oh my God, Lance Armstrong did all of that after he came back from cancer, even though every other cyclist was doing it. And he was just basically going against the same field of other juiced up cyclists while he was juiced up. But we're going to go after him and just talk about what a horrible human being he was, even though his team told him to do it, even though his sponsors told him to do it, even though he was under such extreme pressure. And I just ask you, if you are making millions of dollars and you are put in that situation and the team doctor is saying, do this thing, and the team owner is telling you, do this thing, and people are all around you are saying, do this thing, are you going to do the thing?
Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
Lance Armstrong, why I was young for Lance, so that one hurt me when he was a cheater. I didn't know fully, and I should have known. I don't like how because he ruined other people's lives.
Yes.
He was also one telling teammates to do this, or if you're going to rat on me, I'm going to hurt. And that's where I have my issue with Lance Armstrong, is the stuff he's done to other people. He deserved to be taken down after. But yeah,
that got messy.
That was
real messy.
That was I was doing the show with Speck at the time, because I think when all that came out, when he really got caught, and I think he had to go on Oprah, and he had a terrible interview with Oprah. That was also, I think, Manti Te'o's catfish story was coming out.
That was crazy too.
And also at the same time, because it was a weird time. And that was the moment that it hit me in life, to never idolize athletes. If you have kids, like if you can try to dissuade them from loving athletes, do so. You can't fully do it though. But it was Oscar Piastri.
Oh yeah.
Not Piastri. That's the F1 driver. The South African
Pistorius,
who murdered his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And,
also incredibly
and it was
messed
all
up and
happening
awful.
in like the same 2-week window or something like that, in like a January or something. And it's like, whoa, this is a lot coming at us right now. Like it was a wild time.
That Pistorius stuff, like he was, for those that don't recall, he was able to compete in the Olympics with those prosthetic blades, and incredible story, obviously. But he shot his girlfriend in their condo or a hotel room through the door, thinking someone was breaking in, but she was in the bathroom.
They had a fight or something.
Yeah, like total BS story. And awful. Just absolutely awful. What a crappy time in sports. 2012?
Okay, so the murder was 2013.
2013.
So it was Feb 2013, so around there. He was convicted. He was released on parole after serving 8 years and 6 months back in 2024. So what it said, criminal penalty, there was 5 years imprisonment in 2014, 6 years imprisonment in 2016, 13 years and 5 months imprisonment in 2017. I don't know what that all means. Oh, he had something overturned. One of his culpable homicide was overturned, but then there was a murder conviction.
Question.
So.
Yeah, that's pretty.
There was a lot happening at the same time, though. That's all I remember.
No, you're right though. Don't meet your idols. That's always there's a reason.
Well, you don't know your sports athletes. We see them on the ice or in the field and what they're doing, and it's great. But we actually don't know them as people.
Yeah.
As Dave Jamieson has said in the past, they're all bad people.
He
has said it in a different way, and there was a generalization, obviously, but there's a different connection to all that. But they're all bad people.
The two that I love that I met and got to know a little bit that I kind of go against that. But you're right. In general, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
99, Gretzky is fantastic. And then Doug Waite. But they're people too. Yeah. You realize that they're people. Yeah. They're people too.
And I remember, and I'll go back like 20, 25 years when, again, players would be more open. You go in the dressing room and I've talked about this before. You get to know guys. Like, you got to know, like, they would talk about their families. They would talk about what things were like at home. And coaches would even tell you certain things, right? Like, and I never named the player. But like I remember coach telling me like, oh, guys' in-laws are in town. It's like that.
Yeah.
Like, just like you and me, like drives him. He said his game's going to go down. People don't know what goes on in these players' lives sometimes. And the reason maybe they're having an off night, you don't know what's going on with them. And I remember the few guys, like I did have a player who became a very close friend. And I got to know like the sort of things that made him tick. And I'm like, oh, he's having a really bad day today. Right. Yep. And he's going out there and I know he's got stuff going on in his life that people don't know about, that people would say, oh, and they would make that excuse. You make millions of dollars, suck it up, buttercup, go out and do it. But sometimes, your kid's doing bad at school or you've had a fight with your significant other, a bad one. You've had all sorts of problems that can happen in anyone's life that if you were going to work, you would be like, yeah, it would affect me on my job or I need a mental health day. These guys are under the bright lights and they're doing it. And, and I use that. We just said that a lot of them aren't good people, but a lot of them are just people. And we forget that they are people and they get affected by stuff. And I think that, and in the course of writing my book, which is about like racial abuse in hockey, you wouldn't be surprised how horribly affected a lot of players are. When they say, because one thing players always lie about, and it's always a lie, is when they say they don't read the paper.
Yeah.
And then they say like, oh, I don't read the paper. They know. They know exactly who carved them the night before. And they know who's writing what. They will say that as a way to dissuade you, saying like, I don't care about you.
You don't matter.
But they absolutely read it. And they absolutely know. Never believe anyone that says I don't read or I don't listen to that. I don't read the headlines or I don't listen to the sports broadcast.
Yeah. They may not read the paper as much nowadays, always.
You can tell.
But they're reading they're the online versions.
You can tell when you go in the room and someone's giving you a cold shoulder. You're like, oh, they didn't like what I said the other day. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
There's a lot of drink stocks right now in the Nasty Chat for some reason. Like, I love good old-fashioned whiskey sours. Cocktails is being discussed in the Nasty Chat for some reason.
The good old-fashioned is one of the best things in the world. It's like one of the great things in civilization.
The official drink of the EST Hangout, which is also absolutely amazing and delicious. It is the Finnish long drink, legend of 1952 drink. Unlike any other sparkly refreshment, real liquor, longdrink.com/Canada is where you can enter your postal code and find a liquor store nearest you with the long drink in stock, which has the traditional sugar-free. They are absolutely delicious. I'm looking for that peach version one day. One day I'll have it, and it will be amazing. My life will be changed. But that is the official drink of the EST Hangout. Tom, Steve, Matt with you here on the Hangouts. Reminder, we got Lock Shop coming up at 11. Two guys and a goalie at noon. EST Afternoons and the Reed Wilkins Show with Jay Milne coming up in the afternoon here on Edmonton Sports Talk. What did you make of it? Did you follow along with the Elks and their moves?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's obviously some great storylines. I think bringing Serezna back is going to be huge for this team. It was a trade I didn't understand last year.
I agreed with that.
The pieces that they got, sure, fine, but you give up one of the best linemen in the league. That a guy that you thought was going to be a big building block for this team going forward, and now to bring him back, I think that is a big positive. I mean, the Ford twin brothers narrative is, it's a great story. It's a long way to go for this team, and Ed Hervey will know that, and everyone around this team knows there's a long way to go. There's been so many missteps over the last decade. If there's a banana peel on the floor, Elks management, no matter who it was going to find it.
They went out of their way to step on it.
It was like, put your hand on the stove burner. Don't do it again. Yeah, nope, still doing it. Yeah, still doing it. Okay, you can stop now. Okay, you're grossing me out. It's like me with the ruler on the arm.
Take it off. Take it off.
Steve, this is grotesque but adequate.
But it's just like, and so this team is finally, I think, starting to show maybe that. I mean, I don't know how many people I have talked to at the Elks over the last few years, and I'm sure we've all heard it. They've talked about culture change, and the culture didn't really change, right? And maybe now with Morris and Hervey, this is now finally going to happen. But there's a long way to go. But I think it's positive because it does seem that there's players who want to come and play for this team, which I don't think was the case for a long period.
It would be nice to know full money. I'd like to say players are coming here and it's not because of money. Like Gino Lewis comes here. They were offering the most money.
That was the same with Kenny Lawler the year before.
Right. And so it's like, okay, and they'll just sit here and say it. And I love Gino especially. I'm here to win for this team. But
and I'm not taking no pay cut.
You also came here for money, though.
Yeah, same with
and so that's why I'm fascinated by this. Like, I saw one thing. Serezna was offered, apparently by Toronto, a lot of money. Like, they did send him, and it was like an immediate no. Like, there was a guy that came to Edmonton because partly he wanted to come back to Edmonton. Yeah. It seemed like. I feel like that's the case with a lot of this. Like, Terrell Ford got paid, obviously. But I think the appeal was also, though, I want to play with my brother. I did, like, right? Like, it wasn't, I want to know, like, and that's where it'd be nice to see where the salaries and what else was being negotiated. Because I feel like this case, this free agency, like, because when you sign this many free agents, sometimes it's strictly like, well, you just have a bunch of money and you threw the money and you had more than anyone else. Yeah. I feel like in this one, though, while there was money, and I'm not going to be naive enough to think that, when you only have 3 of your 29 free agents signed, that you have money to spend. I think a lot of guys came here because they wanted to come here, as you said, for the organization to play for. David Beard's coming back.
That's the one.
That's not a money thing necessarily. That is coming back. There are going to be some that is strictly money. I'm probably there were like.
Well, you got to pay David Beard. I mean, Canadian O lineman,
but
right?
like Royce Metier, and I don't know what is it, Metier or Metier?
Metier, I think.
But I heard,
and then
what
about Robbie Smith? Like that's a sneaky good pick.
I heard Robbie Smith say Metier yesterday.
I know, I heard him say that too. But everyone's been calling on the broadcast. He was Mechie.
And it's John Mechie's brother down south.
Yeah.
And when they were in Alabama, was Mechie. But Smith played with him, and now that's where I was just like, oh boy, are we getting this wrong?
Well,
Which one
Steve
is
will
it?
Go in the room, or Hernan or me.
That one I could see maybe money. That one I could see the Elks paid more than others. I don't see the connection for either. But so many of the other signings that they made, I sit there and go, these are guys that want to come to Edmonton. They're seeing what's maybe happening in Edmonton and going, we're going to be part of that organization.
I think as well, like there is a stability part that now Edmonton is trying to have. And I think a lot of this too is, I mean, it started, I think, after the season, but they had to sort of get, okay, we're going to pull Trey Ford's head out of limbo where he's been in, I think, 3 years of not really knowing which way is up with this team.
And not you can't blame them.
No, absolutely.
Right?
Not.
Like all the crap they put
it's like, yeah, you play well, but you're still on the shortest leash in the world.
Yeah.
And the second you have any kind of rough game or you're yanked. And then all our narrative, even when it seems like you won the job, is like we're going to bring in someone else, or we're still looking. And it was always the narrative. And that was Chris Jones' narrative with Trey Ford the whole time, right? It was never like, oh, he can never get too comfortable, but not in the way like any athlete can't get too comfortable. It was like, oh, he shouldn't be comfortable. And now it feels like they're finally saying, Trey, like, this is your team. This is going to, and look what we're doing. Feel good about it, right? And I think that is the big step. And I think this is what fans on this team have wanted for 3 years.
One,
the fans have wanted this for 3 years for Trey Ford to be handed the keys to the car and say, this is going to be your team going forward, and we were going to build around you. And finally, I think they're starting to see that. And it's taken a long time.
And it's not just the diehard fans that are spending the money. It's the casual fans that are out right now, that are paying attention to what the Elks are doing over here, but aren't going to the games.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that as soon as, the Elks have won over the last 2 seasons I'm going to go into, in August, September, it's kind of both seasons they started winning. Fans came back and they were there. And then, like, I remember last year when we got to this time of the year and it was MBT's team, there's a lot of people like, I was one of those people that was excited about this season, but I'm not anymore. There weren't the diehard, but they're like, I was excited for Trey. Trey was bringing in the casuals and they just threw that away for football. But Trey's good for business. Now it's on Trey though. Like, now you got to show that you are a starting quarterback in the Canadian Football League. That you've been given an offensive line, you've got running backs, you've got coaching staff and a GM that are saying, we believe in you. This is now your team. Go prove that you'd earn this. And I think he will. But this is like, I think casual fans, they want to get excited because he's also exciting to watch.
Yep.
That was even if MBT was successful last year and they won football games and Grey Cup, I got to take that out of it because you win a Grey Cup, everyone's going to be happy. If MBT was a successful quarterback, he's not an exciting one. He wasn't going to bring out casuals as much.
No.
Trey's just exciting. From 2 years ago, there's that Labor Day run that he had. Somebody matched it up to Kyler Murray, one of these runs he had. That
was like 80 yards, wasn't it?
And his was better. Trey's was better.
Yeah.
And it's like, this guy is fun to watch. He's exciting to watch. And I would rather see the Elks go 9-9 with Trey Ford, to a degree, than going 11-7 with a guy that's a little more boring.
But it's like if you showed any CFL marketing department, anyone in any of the teams, and you say, okay, here's this guy, and you show the plays, and they'd be like, oh, that's good. And then you kind of whisper to them, and he's Canadian. Right? Like, you can market that.
Do you know what's funny?
That was kind of sexual.
Yeah, and he's...
I'm just going to say it.
Well, that's okay.
There was at the start of the CFL season last year on CFL.ca, they had a little header picture, and they had a player from each team across the 9. And the Edmonton one was in the middle. It was right in the middle. And it was Trey. And I was like, you can't use Trey. I'm sorry. He's the backup quarterback of this team. But that also shows his marketability, was that they went and we're going to still promote Trey to all this. But it was like, don't use the backup quarterback right now. It's MBT starting this weekend. Not a good look. But if he is a starting quarterback, we were talking about earlier this week, you have Trey Ford, you have Nathan Rourke. Mm-hmm. You got to put them on a pedestal. If they're both successful, long time in the Canadian Football League potentially. But then you also throw the Canadian behind it. That's great. Hopefully Chad Kelly can, again, not be an idiot. And you have Davis Alexander. Maybe we have a stable of quarterbacks that might be here for 10 years that we could be like, look at this group that the Canadian Football League has.
Yep. It's an exciting time in the CFL. And now that the focus has shifted away from Atlantic Canada for the next, there has to be expansion.
Yeah.
And Quebec City looks like it's going to be the destination. Forget hockey, Quebec City. You're not getting any
Pirates.
Yeah,
bring back Shreveport.
Yeah, Baltimore. But
where the world is right now between the two countries, definitely not.
Yeah. But you get that 10th team in there, you bounce the schedule, there's no 3 bye weeks. The stadiums are nice now. The guy, the fact that the salary cap went up $400,000 last week, even though it was to the chagrin of some of the guys in their free agency, that's a good sign. The league is in a good place. It's found its level with the 25 to 30,000 seat stadiums, hopefully more. In my opinion,
I think it could get more.
I think 30,000 was fair, but
again, it's been a long time since this franchise, the Double E franchise, has been successful for 3-4 straight years.
Yeah.
That's true. It was 14-15 was top years. 14 though wasn't expected. We're all like, where is this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And then they were fine the next few years, but it wasn't great seasons. There was a lot of turmoil.
Yeah.
It was that early 2000s. It was the 2002, 3, 4, 5 season when Ricky was here, and then he left for the NFL for a quick year, and Jason Moss was there, and the Elks were, in 3 or 4 Grey Cups?
Yeah. They were good in 01 too.
Get back to that. And I'm not saying you have to be in 3 or 4, but be in 2 Grey Cups over 5 years and be a team that's competing for the top of the West for those 5 years.
Right.
I think then the city would get back behind this team because now they're supporting a winner. Like the Elks, they're not going to be the Edmonton Oilers who are able to go through the decade of darkness and have a sold out Rexall Place. But on the flip side to that, they always had Rogers Place as a carrot dangling in front of their season ticket holders, going, hey, we've got this new arena coming. If you don't have your tickets, we got this wait list and you won't be able to get into the new barn. So people were able to stay. I will be fascinated to see what the next iteration of the Oilers looks like 15 years from now when Connor and Leon are gone. And if they fall off, what this season ticket base is going to be. But for the Elks, it's, people don't want to support a losing team year in and year out. Yeah. They're tired of it. They now want to support a winner, and you have to do it consistently. And if they do that, I could see us back to having 35, 36,000 a night if it's the 3rd straight season of the Elks being great.
Yep. Those are good nights at the stadium. Nice warm summer days, 35,000.
Commonwealth's bumping.
It's a good spot.
And it's not too bumping.
Right.
That was
when it's comfortable bumping.
Yeah, like that 35 to 40 is a great number.
Sweet spot.
It's a great sweet spot. The concourse is full. Yeah.
But when the concourse turns into a mosh pit,
once you pass that and you can't move and you can't go to the bathroom and it's just then it's like this is a little tough.
Ice Tekka level of like mosh pit where people are hiding from the cold, so they're kind of moving into the concourse, and it's like I can't move.
That's where it gets a little uncomfortable.
And like, it's like when I get 40, and when I get into that sea of people, I expect to hear a band. I expect to hear something.
Which is interesting because a couple of things. When Evan Dom was on here and he goes, hey, we have to remind ourselves that stadium was engineered to hold 48,000. They expanded it to 60 whatever, and then now with the new seating, it's down to
2 at a tight.
Yeah, it's 55, which is still 7,000 more than it was engineered for. But you're right, Steve, like cold days there with the open air on the main concourse. They have those little extensions that they built for the 2001 World Championships or Track and Field Championships. But if and Alan Watt was telling me that those renderings that were finally made public last year with the renovated Commonwealth, and they had the main concourse closed in. I think they had it glassed in, which is great.
If they would have got the World Cup, all the change to Commonwealth would have been insane.
Yeah, so now it might be different, but hopefully they glass in that main area. Means the main concourse is somewhat shielded from the outdoors and the elements, which would be great.
I do want to get to that, but just quickly, portions of this hour of the EST Hangout. Quickly, just want to get to. It is brought to you by Lloydstad Insurance Brokers, who are the presenting sponsor of the EST Fun Spiel taking place this Saturday at the Shamrock. They are at Lloydstad.com, one of Alberta's top and largest, most trusted independent insurance brokerages. Lloydstad.com for more information. Be sure to connect with Kevin Bondel, who will be curling on Saturday. So if you're coming out, say hi to Kevin. He's a fellow Nasty. And thank you to Lloydstad for being presenting sponsors of the EST Fun Spiel, our first one. Going this Saturday at the Shamrock. If you're not playing, you're more than welcome to come out and have a few drinks while watching the boy. Tommy will be sitting around. Her and I will be sitting around unless some of the sick guys also have to bail. Correct. Just put that on the radar right now.
Steve,
what were you going to say?
I was just saying Commonwealth Stadium, if you look at it from above or what have you, you'd swear the stadium was in Russia. Like you would, like it looks like those old communist era concrete stadiums. Like I feel that almost as a funny sort of thing. I mean, Edmonton gets this a lot about like the brutalist architecture and the concrete and how much. I mean, even SCTV when they're like, hey, like we should do an episode here where we do Russian SCTV because it'll work here because we can. This place looks like Russia.
It has a lot of value engineering in our buildings, even our downtown towers. Like. It starts off with a nice rendering. I have this obscure infatuation with building construction. And then you'll see they'll dumb it down and it turns into a rectangle or a square.
How it keeps changing.
Yeah.
You could look a little bit at Ice Dish with some of the towers and some of the things that were going to happen. You look at the first iteration to what it was and you're like,
And you look at some of the
towers.
certain
things that were gone, you're like, those would have been cool.
I just feel like Commonwealth would be so complete if there was like a star at one end on a concrete pillar. And then there's like a rendering of our leaders looking skyward in triumph while there were like people raking the fields and fighter jets flying overhead.
Get that man a sickle.
Get that man a sickle. And there's like, why are there all these pictures of fighter jets flying overhead?
Yeah. At least fighter jets are cool.
Yeah.
Like, those are sick. But it's sad. Like, you go to Calgary and you're like, why is that a nice building? What, that one's newer, or that one's new, but we've got newer ones. Why is that one nice? Why does that one have a nice roof feature finish? And they have the same damn climate that we do. Chinooks be damned. And it's because for whatever reason here, whoever our city managers and planners are, they accept value engineering, and it's aesthetically depressing.
Do you think there will be civic money or provincial money into Commonwealth? How do you think because it seems like Larry Thompson
event,
coming in
without a major goal, like if World Cup would have happened, then you would have got that money. But
there was talk recently of the province maybe throwing some money in because of the money they've given to Calgary's arena.
But I think okay, but where is the end game here? Like, who else is the tenant here? Like, what else are we bringing in? I mean, when there's been the attempts to sort of bring in some events here and there, the problem with a big stadium like Commonwealth in Edmonton is, unlike Rogers Place, which has the Oilers 40-some games and the playoffs 50-some games a year.
Let's say 60 right now. They're probably
60.
planning for about 65
Then
or
you
so.
have the concerts. Then you have all the other events.
Oil
and
Kings.
That place is open more nights than it's not, right? Like, it's going. It's bringing people in. But what is at how many nights this year was Commonwealth lit?
There's
10 or 11
9
football games.
There's 10 football games.
2 Metallica nights.
There's 2 Metallica nights. There was Pink.
Pink.
If we're going 2024, I think that might have been it.
Yeah. So
I don't know if there was anything else
that is dark.
Where this year
90% of the nights.
Yeah, this year there'll be the 10. There's already Morgan Wallen. Thank you. Is it Jelly Roll? No, Jelly Roll's going to Rogers, I think.
Yeah.
There's another there's the Weekend coming. That's who it was.
Yeah.
And I think there might be one more.
So
coming.
you have, but it's so difficult.
But
right
Larry
now,
Thompson needs to solve this too.
They have to figure out a way. Yeah.
This has got to be solved sooner rather than later.
That was part of the deal for the team, was it not?
But in his opening press conference, Larry talked about that, and they said they already met with the city.
I
actually
asked him
before
about
that.
it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't see that we're gonna have the money to build that. It's probably gonna be renovate.
Yeah,
and I don't think Larry's gonna do it on his own.
And I go back to the Women's World Cup years and years and years ago, and I think the problems with Commonwealth are, when you have this sense of civic pride. I still remember the Dutch journalist sitting next to me in the press box and saying, the great thing after this game is I never have to come back to this place. And it was like,
He hated the stadium that much.
Hated the city. And also the city, because where they were staying, most of the journalists didn't stay downtown because the FIFA execs had all the nice downtown
And we didn't
hotels.
even have J Dub at the time.
Right.
Because J Dub was the first hotel built in Edmonton.
They were staying out by the mall. They were staying out by the mall.
Oh, that
those
sucks.
hotels out by the mall.
Yeah.
And then they were busing in on a shuttle. So their experience of Edmonton was to come in from the West End, go to Commonwealth, and then go back to their hotel.
Yeah, they
never went close to downtown. They never went close to anything. So that was their image of what Edmonton was. And we did such a poor job of sort of selling our city in the time. And I will go on about this, that we did such a poor job selling our city during that Women's World Cup when you had journalists from all over the world here. And what they saw was the part of town that's around Commonwealth.
That's a rough part of town, which on the southeast side is now starting to get some development, which is great. Yeah. So that was prior to that, prior to the new station, prior to a lot of those towers that were built, and good point. That was a long time ago, 10 years ago. A lot's changed since then.
Yeah, but it's
still a work in progress.
And I mean, the amount of renovations they would have had to, it was so expensive, and for what they would have needed to for the World Cup. One insider had said to me that there was a joke that someone made to a FIFA official. It might be cheaper for us to knock the stadium down and build a new one. And very humorlessly, they said the FIFA official kind of said to them, yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they would have had to have the stuff that they had talked about, like building a tunnel underneath the stadium, because you can't have VIPs enter the same entrance. And Commonwealth has the media entrance that we walk in the same where the fans walk in. You can't have that. So they would have to have built a separate entrance with an elevator. The locker rooms would have had to be repositioned, right? They would have had to have done major renovations to each side of the stadium. All the seats need to be covered. So it would have had to extend the roof of the stadium to make sure that there was no seats hanging in open air. So it'd be more of the circle around it. There was so much that I'd heard about, and I was thinking to myself, this is years. It would have been like 2 years. I mean, one of the things that I'd heard, and I tried to confirm the Elks, is they would have had to move to Fort Mac probably for 2 seasons.
Gross.
I think they would have probably built one of those.
You could put a temporary stadium at the old horse track.
They would have done something local,
but they would have been able to play Commonwealth for 2 seasons.
Right.
Yeah, but they would have had sold out crowds for 2.
Yeah.
Could have been a blessing in disguise. Straight like they could have sat, instead of dealing with woes, they could have been like, well, we have nothing else we could do. We only have these tickets, and it would have been sold out.
We saw what it did for the Alouettes, right?
It might have worked out for them really well.
It was a U2 concert, right, that they got kicked out for, right? That they couldn't play Olympic Stadium. And they said, we'll have to play at McGill, at Molson Stadium. And then they realized, wait, this is way better than playing at Olympic Stadium.
Yeah.
Right? And it was like...
It might have been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, that was like, we're moving.
Straight up.
We're moving. But that's what it was, right?
Yeah,
it was
they got kicked out of Olympic Stadium.
It was a concert. I believe it was, I'm not saying
I know it's U2 once is the reason that we got artificial turf in Edmonton.
Because it wrecked the
They
field.
were one of the last major concerts when they had a natural grass and they destroyed the grass.
Yeah.
And I think that's when Edmonton made a decision.
U2 are the worst. Look what they've done. Look at the chaos they've caused.
I think
they are the worst.
Yeah. I think that was when they made the decision, we're going artificial turf, and they made that. And that needs to get replaced here too.
That turf, they did an audit on it, and it has a couple of years left. But you walk around it, and you're like, "Oh, this is in bad shape."
And Clark is getting new turf.
Good.
Like they tore it up during last season. I don't know if it's in yet or not, but Clark is getting new turf.
Like when they got that pro turf revolution, whatever, field turf revolution, like that was the FIFA World Cup.
It was 415.
Yeah, and the other thing too is why they had to replace the old artificial turf, the first field that they rolled out, and they had to redo the drainage system, which clearly wasn't working, because that game against Calgary a couple of years ago where they had that huge pocket of water under the field, it is not in good shape. But they did an audit on it, and apparently it's supposed to be good for a couple more years. But you walk around it and you're like, oh, this is not good. Okay, so the original artificial turf that replaced the grass in 2010, they had ghost lines on it for that World Cup, and FIFA's like, no, get that out of here. They put in a soccer turf, not a football turf. So the footing is bad for football. And then at the World Cup, if you'll recall, Steve, I'm sure you do vividly, the women hated it. And they said, why aren't we playing on natural grass?
Because the men's World Cup has to be natural grass. Except in Russia, I think there was one stadium that didn't have it. It was one of the few times. It was like a very big hybrid.
Because the rule used to be like that.
And now the Women's World Cup now has its natural grass.
The World Cup actually doesn't have a rule, but it does say all the games have played in the same surface. Okay. So like you can't have a mix. So like when they went to turf in Canada, and yeah, it was a big thing. Definitely a lot of the women complained. And it's not about what you think it is. A lot of it is about the heat. Like if you're on artificial turf and it's a summer day,
it's hot.
It's about 10 degrees warmer because the black pellets, they just reflect heat. It's like a blast furnace. And I remember FC Edmonton players, you would talk about it playing on a Sunday afternoon, and they would say it's hotter than the desert out here. They would say like, wow, it's like crazy. And when you stand at field level, if it's, let's say 30 outside, it feels like it's 40.
Yes.
And and that's what the players notice is the heat. And when you're playing soccer, like playing in heat changes like the way you play. The game gets slower. Players have to like really reserve their energies. That's why like a lot of World Cup games, if you notice, people when it's played in the summer aren't that great. Like because teams have to conserve their energy, right? It's not like watching a game in England in December where it's 2 degrees outside. And there's a reason that in most of Europe, soccer is a winter sport. It's because it's so physically taxing. Playing it in the summer makes no sense. Now, obviously, there's parts of the world where it's warm all the time, and you're playing in that kind of weather. Like Brazilians don't seem to have an issue with it. But in a lot of places in the world, the reason soccer is a winter sport is because it's so physically taxing. It makes no sense to play this game when it's 30, 35 degrees.
They need a new field.
Well, the stadium is the big thing that I'm fascinated about over the next couple of years because they got to get that sorted out. And it seemed like the decision would be renovate Commonwealth as opposed to a new stadium. And I'm fascinated to see where the money comes from and what that looks like. And is it those renderings that we saw that I don't remember Alan Watt, I think said it was also that wasn't something new that had been.
Those were years that those renderings were created and kept in house. And then the city of Edmonton had them on their website finally. And someone came across them.
So I as good as everything good with the Elks is, it's just that stadium part does work. I love it. We got to that just talking about, because it's true. Once you get over 40,000, Commonwealth it's a rough place to be at. And the conscious that are going to come to town, like anyone going, again, be aware that if once the weekend sells out and stuff and you go to that show, you will have some difficulties moving around, and that's just
the terrifying thing too. Is if you're a city government, you're looking at Commonwealth, you're like, wow, probably the bill to renovate Commonwealth from even 2 years ago is going up exponentially by the year. By the way, construction costs are going. And oh boy, if there's tariffs, right? Like you're looking at another massive bump in costs.
The flip side though is like the reason they're renovating Big O and spending $800 million on it or something is it'll cost like $2 billion to tear it down or something. Like it's a ridiculous fund to tear it down. And I wonder if we're also getting to that point with Commonwealth where the cost of tearing it down might be so ridiculous.
Wasn't it like $25 million for the Coliseum now? To tear it down, like the price is ballooned
Olympic
exponentially.
Stadium is so awesome though. When you walk through it, like in Montreal, it feels like you're in a Russian science fiction movie from like the 1970s. You feel like you like it's just weird. It's like you know how science fiction movies were in the 70s. Like I'm not even talking about Russian ones, but it feels like you're in Soylent Green or something like that. Like, you know, you're going to say like Soylent Green is people when you're walking in it's just so awesome. And there's something about that I just kind of hope gets preserved because it's just like of a time in the 70s, what the people thought the future was going to look like in 1975 and 1976. And it's just of the certain time that I just kind of love, and there's no other place in the world like it. And I know, like,
not even in Russia.
And then it doesn't make sense to have a sporting venue there. It feels so airy and dark and so spaced out and not intimate at all. But like, there's something about it that it's like it's like Stanley Kubrick designed a stadium. It's like you let him have the reins, and that this is what it's going to be.
That was supposed to be a retractable roof too, but it never functioned properly.
Yeah, because it was like a tent that pulled up. Right?
There was I remember this, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was just too young, but I remember watching the score and once watching the ticker. And Montreal had a home game that was postponed due to rain. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. There's a dome, but there's like a leak through because of the crappy roof that didn't work. And it was raining and it was coming through, and they had to postpone for a bit. I'm like, you're doing stadium guys. Like, what happened here?
Also, because of the nature of that roof, when there's ice buildup, they can't have games because of danger the roof is going to like tear and collapse. Remember Montreal Impact were supposed to play a February Champions League game there, and then people were worried if they could actually play it because the ice was building up on top of the roof, and there's a certain level that you can't have games at Olympic Stadium. It is such a tribute to engineering incompetence that it's exactly the kind of thing that you can keep throwing money at a problem. And if I don't know if anyone watches this, the Facebook channel, like, or the Instagram Super Angry German, how Germans have a word for things that generally really have sentences for. And he was explaining one, like, where people try to make things better, but every time they try to make something better, they actually make it worse. And he said the Germans have a word for that. That's what I think about with Olympic Stadium.
A tribute to engineering incompetence is such an amazing oxymoron. I'm just in awe of it.
I remember, this has nothing to do with the design of Big O. I just remember an Impact TFC game. I think it was those two that were meeting, and one end of the field, they painted the box too small.
Yeah. But that was the field.
And they were coming out and they're looking at and they were trying to figure out what to do, but the box, somebody looked and they're like, the box is too small. So one box was just too small.
But it wasn't like a little bit too small where it wasn't like a yard off. It was like, who the heck did this? Like, you're like, it would be like if they put like lacrosse nets in at the Oilers game. They'd be like, how do you not know that's not a hocky net?
Yeah, it was just wonderful. There was this huge delay for this game because they painted it wrong, and you're like, this is right.
There's a very quick and easy solution. You get the guy with the paint, you spray the green over the white, and then you measure out the lines. And you do it, and then away we go.
Was that like imagine Winnipeg that hosted the NFL exhibition game, and they had to like change the rules because like they couldn't figure out the goalposts and stuff like that.
Oh, it was they had to make they played an 80-yard field.
Yes,
because the field goal post cover or something was an issue.
The grass that covered where the CFL goal post sits, or pardon me, the turf. It was a raised trip hazard. Like, oh my God.
It was a playoff match between TFC and Impact back in 2016. It was delayed 40 minutes after officials found marking on the field were too small. We've got about like 3 or 4 minutes left here, Steve. You referenced it a bit earlier. I want to go back to it though. You have a book coming out September?
Yeah. So Leveling the Ice, it's out with Beacon Press. And you can find it already, pre-order it. It's about race in hockey, race in the NHL, and the real issues that the game's still facing when it comes to race. Spoke to quite a few NHL players, both past and present. Officials from Hockey Canada, USA Hockey, the NHL, about the state of hockey when it comes to diversifying the game and why we're lagging so far behind other sports. It'll probably be a bit of a harsh read, but and people I'm sure are going to be asking me as this book gets out, why is a white guy proselytizing about race and sport? But it's a very, very important issue to me about the survival of this game, about where hockey needs to change, become more diverse and more accessible to all. And that's coming out in September.
Where, okay, you said pre-order. Where could people go? Best place to pre-order?
Penguin Random House. All of the major retailers already have it on the pre-order lists. So Leveling the Ice, Sandor. You just look it up. You'll find it on all of the. You'll find it at Indigo. You'll find it at all your favorite bookstores already for pre-order. Be ready to put that out. The book is done now, and I'm just kind of waiting. It's been a long process.
You've been talking about the book for a long time. Around the clicks that there's light at the end of the tunnel here.
Yeah,
that must be so cool finishing a book.
It's my 11th, but it's been the one that's been by far the hardest to write. Because it took because it's the most controversial, and it's took a lot. Emotionally put a lot in. I kind of feel like they're already asking what's my next book, and I'm like, oh, I'm not ready yet, but I think I am, maybe, sort of. It's always like, you think you fight your last fight and you're like, okay, I'm retired and now they're going to offer me something. And it's not a lot of money because it's writing books. So I'm not going to say, oh, they're offering me a lot of money to write the next one. No, it's not what it is. It's something you just got to do.
That's still pretty badass.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's said once the book comes out. I think that some people, I'd like to think that most readers will be open to some of the things that I'm kind of talking about, but I certainly know there's going to be some pushback. But that's just what it is.
I'm looking forward to the book.
Me too.
You've been talking about it for a while. I think one of the first times I tried booking you for the Hangout, you had a push because you were going to have an interview with someone you were trying to get for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very fascinated to see where this fully goes and stuff. And I'm excited for the book September while away, but I'll be checking that out to pre-order that because I like I like deep discussion books type of thing that make you think, thought-provoking books.
I like when people I know have books coming out. It's cool.
There's something special about hey, this person wrote this book and their name's on it. That's awesome.
It is amazing. Low Tide when he had his book.
Anytime I go
Marty
to
Klinkenberg.
Spec wrote. He's wrote a couple now.
Yeah.
Recently I was Chapters and I saw Low Tide's book. I'm like, hey, it's Low Tide's book.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, hey, look at that. It's there. So that's always it's really cool because I couldn't even imagine writing a book.
I want to try it. I got to learn how to write, but I would love to try it sometime. Maybe I'll pick up reading at some point too.
UFOs, what are they called now?
UAPs.
UAPs is.
I thought Nick Pope was great. That was a very cool get at a quiet time in the sporting world.
Do you believe in UFOs?
Well, there's definitely things that we don't know. I don't know if they're.
Have we been visited by any other life?
Oh, that would be cool if it was true. They probably saw the. I don't know. So they saw us and they were like, you were not that interesting. I'm believing the Hitchhiker's Guide in the Galaxy, where they would say that we're mostly harmless.
Look at these destructive monkeys.
They would be like, what the heck's going on?
They are not worth our time.
Or they'd send the robot down, Gort Barada Nikto, and it's time to shape up planet Earth.
Yeah.
Steve, thanks for coming in. Always love having you on the show. It's a great time always. Coming up next here on Edmonton Sports Talk, we got the Lock Shop. We've got Two Guys and a Goalie. We've got EST Afternoons. We've got the Reed Welkin Show. Tonight, we also have Turf District on the audio stream at Four Nations. It is USA Finland tonight. On behalf of Tommy, Steve, and Brendan on the other side of the glass, I am Matt. Thanks for tuning into the EST Hangout presented by Sentinel Storage here on your clear choice for Edmonton Sports, Edmonton Sports Talk. As I said, Lock Shop coming up in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Look at this. Let's go.
There you go, right in front of the camera.
First-time guest, long-time listener, fan of the original draft commissioner.
Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. The difference is clear. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Gazzola with here. Joining us today.